Welcome to today's lecture. We are going to capitalize on etiological factors. In this lecture, we have our objectives. The first objective is to explain the term etiological factors. The second objective is to mention the various etiological factors of mental illness. Let's begin by defining the term etiological factors. For us really to understand etiological factors, we must first of all begin by explaining what etiological is. So, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, etiological can be defined as causing or contributing to the cause of a disease or condition. That is according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary. So therefore, borrowing from that, etiological factors can be defined as the factors that contribute to or cause a disease or condition. I hope that is right. Etiological factors, these are now the factors that contribute to or cause a disease. Let's go to our second objective, and we are trying to explain the various etiological factors of mental illness. So in this case, we are answering the question, what are the etiological factors of mental illness? So generally, mental illness can be caused by various factors, and one or more factors can contribute to an individual's mental illness. And a detailed patient medical history is needed to ascertain the major etiological factor to mental illness. When I talk about a detailed patient medical history, this is the information you get from the patient once the patient gets into the facility. It's either you get the information from the patient, or you can get the information from the caregiver who has brought the patient to the facility. So really, a detailed patient medical history is needed to ascertain the major etiological factor to mental illness. So there is no known single causative agent for mental illness. There is no known single causative agent for mental illness, and it is believed that mental illness can be caused by very many factors. And some of those very many factors are what we are yet to look at. Now, we have 6 etiological factors. The first etiological factor is genetic factor. The second etiological factor is organic factor. The third one is social and environmental factor. The fourth one is psychological factor. The fifth one is behavioral factor. And finally, the sixth is traumas. So allow me to go into details on each and every etiological factor. Let's begin by genetic. Let's begin by genetic factors. So generally, these are factors that are controlled by the genes. And in other words, they are inherited characteristics from the parents. Genes are the unique traits which an individual possesses. So these are the traits which are passed on to the offspring. And generally, any abnormality in the chromosome may cause mental illness. So based on that, you'll realize that children from mentally ill parents are more likely to develop mental illness than children of healthy parents. I want to look at the term more likely, which means there is a probability of passing that trait of mental illness from the parent to the offspring. So that is a contributor. Genetics is a contributor to mental illness. So it means it can be an inherited trait or characteristic. And to our second factor. Our second factor is organic factors. So organic factors like cerebrovascular diseases, nervous system diseases, endocrine diseases, and chronic illnesses like epilepsy are associated with mental illness. So let's really understand one by one all these organic factors. Let's begin by looking at cerebrovascular diseases. Cerebrovascular diseases, these are the diseases that impact the brain vessel in the brain cells. So, like the name suggests, cerebrovascular, coined from two terms, cerebro, which means the brain and the brain cells. Then vascular, these are the blood vessels, which are within the brain cells. So, generally, any defect on the blood vessels supplying the brain will affect the brain functions or the mental situations of the brain. So an example is reduced flow of blood within the brain. That is likely to affect the functioning of the brain. Secondly, when the blood vessels within the brain begins bleeding, or rather if you talk of hemorrhage, so in such a case, the brain cells are interfered with, and as a result, it can cause mental illness. The second is the nervous system diseases. Nervous system diseases, we know very well that the peripheral nervous system is made of the nerves. So anything which affects the nerves will really affect the mental illness. For example, we have diseases like Alzheimer's disease, We have diseases like epilepsy, we have diseases like seizures, we have diseases like cerebral palsy. All those are contributors to mental illness. And to endocrine diseases. Endocrine diseases, these are really the diseases which come as a result of the endocrine system improper secretion of the neurotransmitters. It can be the neurotransmitters, or it can be the secretion of even the normal hormones which we know within our system. So, for example, we know very well that the brain is so much dependent on the hormones and hormonal changes. So that can really affect the brain functioning or the mental health. So an example of endocrine disease is like the Turner syndrome. And there are also other chronic illnesses like epilepsy, which are really associated with mental illness. Let's look at the next factor, which is social and environmental factors. Social and environmental factors. Social and environmental crises like poverty, tension, emotional stress, occupation, and financial difficulties. Not forgetting unhappy marriages, broken homes, abuse and neglect, population, mobility, frustrations, and those are really some of the social factors. Somebody will be interested to know how poverty can be a contributing factor to mental illness. There is a research which was done, and it was realized that the level of poverty correlates with the level of mental illness. To mean, very poor people are prone to mental illness. I guess it's because of a lot of the challenges which they are undergoing, a lot of thinking, and so on and so forth. Then there is also the aspect of tension. Then the aspect of emotional stress. In case of the loss of a loved one, somebody is emotionally stressed. In case of something which is not doing so right with you, and you become emotionally down, you can easily sink into depression, and as a result, that will be mental illness. We have occupation and financial difficulties. Occupation is whereby your work environment is so toxic to an extent that you are mentally disturbed. There's financial difficulties, you're not able to meet all your financial obligations, the aspect of unhappy marriage, the aspect of broken homes, abuse and neglect, population mobility, and frustrations. And better still, there are other environmental factors like talk of earthquake, talk of floods, and other epidemics. These are associated with mental, they are associated with mental illness. Still on social and environmental factors, there are those environmental factors other than the psychosocial ones capable of producing abnormal human behaviors. And these include toxic substances like carbon disulfide and carbon monoxide, talk of mercury, talk of manganese, talk of tin, talk of lead compounds. Now these are substances, toxic substances which are found in the environment, and in case of excess consumption of these substances, you are likely to be exposed to mental illness. In our environment, these substances are there, but there is what we call the toxic level. You can consume it, but before you reach the toxic level, it might not have any health effect on you. But when it goes beyond the normal limit, then it's likely to cause mental illness. The fifth one, the fifth etiological factor is what we refer to as psychological factors. The psychological factors, these are like early childhood experiences of abuse and other psychological traumas. These traumas which occur as the kid is growing are likely to play an important role in development of the mental illness in adult life. So the environment where the kid grows, in terms of, I'm talking about the environment to mean the support system which the kid has as he's growing. If the kid is in, if the support system is very abusive and the support system is full of traumas, then high chances the kid will develop mental illness in the adult life. So there are various retrospective studies which have been carried out and have proven this fact. Let's look at behavioral factor as another etiological factor for mental illness. Behavioral factors, these are like indulgence in drugs. So these drugs can be alcohol and other substances like cat. These are associated with mental illness. Alcohol, I guess all of us understand what alcohol is. Cat, this is the normal, in our normal term, we call it mirror. In different places, they have different names for it. So, indulgence in drugs has proven to be one of the major causes of mental illness. And within this, I think the government is doing what is possible so that the young population is not so much exposed to these drugs. Let's look at other etiological factors. Other etiological factors are like nutritional deficiency. And nutritional deficiency, we have foods which are needed for our proper brain or rather neural development. So foods rich in vitamin D, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin K, foods which are rich in omega-3 fatty acids really help in brain development or neural development. And iron-rich foods can also help the brain oxygen. So really, when you lack some of these nutrients and vitamins, then we talk of nutritional deficiency. In such a case, you are prone to developing mental illness. There is another factor is infections before and after delivery. Infection before and after delivery or birth trauma. In other terms, we can always call it postpartum psychosis, or you can talk of puerperal psychosis or post-tratal psychosis. All these are terms which are used to refer to somebody who develops mental illness after delivery. And generally, the research has it that 1 in 1,000 deliveries is likely to have what we call postpartum psychosis. So this is a medical emergency and it needs a quick intervention. Other factors, we have road occupation and other accidents. I guess to believe that some of you might have experienced situations of accident, and after accident, most people develop mental illness. To mean some people cannot recognize where they are. Some people lose their memory in the course of the accident. Some people, depending on the extent of the accident, if the accident has a big trauma to the brain cells, a serious mental illness will definitely occur. Last but not least is radiation accidents. Radiation accidents, these are the radiations which come from the equipment which we use for radiations like X-rays. So the nervous system is most sensitive to radiations during period of neural development. Neural development are the earliest stages of life. This is whereby, life begins by the brain and the spinal cord. So in the process of forming the brain and the spinal cord, that is a very crucial stage in life, and we call that neural development. So during this period of neural development, any exposure to radiations is likely to affect the spinal cord or the brain, and as a result of that, that will mean the fetus will develop mental illness. Additionally, apart from radiations, we also have conditions whereby if the offspring or the fetus per se misses some nutrients, like we talk of folic acid. If the fetus is not well fed on folic acid from the mother, then the fetus will develop what you call neural tube defect. Neural tube defect to mean the spinal cord is likely to develop abnormally. So those are all possible causes of mental illness. In summary, mental illnesses are caused by various factors referred to as the etiological factors. Examples of these factors are genetic factors, organic factors, behavioral factors, psychological factors, traumas, social and environmental factors. And one or more factor can contribute to an individual's, can contribute. Really, a detailed patient medical history is needed to ascertain the major etiological factor to mental illness. And deeper understanding of the predisposing factors, the ones which we've talked about, are necessary for prevention and treatment of mental illness. You really have to understand all the predisposing factors to aid in the prevention and treatment of mental illness, as will be discussed in the next lectures to come. Thank you. That is the end of today's lesson.